If you want to know how fast your body is aging from the inside, don't look at your blood tests. Don't look at your waist circumference. Look at the lining of your intestines. Because right at this moment, invisible particles smaller than a grain of sand are tearing through your intestinal wall like sandpaper on a wet paper towel. A recent study showed that the average person swallows about 5 grams of microplastics every single week, the equivalent of eating an entire credit card. And here's what nobody tells you. Once these particles penetrate and settle into your intestinal lining, they trigger a cascade of inflammation linked to everything from autoimmune flare-ups to unexplained weight gain. But here's the good news. There are specific foods available at any supermarket that can bind to these particles and help your body eliminate them naturally and effectively. Most people think microplastics are just an environmental problem, something affecting oceans and sea turtles, maybe tap water. But after many years in emergency medicine and preventive care, I noticed a completely different pattern. Microplastics don't just float in the ocean. They are now inside your intestinal tissue, weakening the barrier that separates your blood from everything you swallow. The damage they cause closely resembles the early stages of inflammatory bowel disease, except most doctors don't test for it at all. After years of treating patients with vague digestive complaints, chronic bloating, sudden food sensitivities, and fatigue that no blood test could explain, I began noticing something deeply concerning. These patients didn't have infections. They didn't have classic irritable bowel syndrome. What they had was an inflamed, eroded intestinal lining. And emerging research pointed to something we were all ignoring. Microplastics accumulating in our food, water, and even the air we breathe. We were told our bodies simply pass these particles and eliminate them. But the science tells a completely different story. To understand why microplastics are so destructive to your intestines, you first need to understand what the intestinal lining actually is. Imagine the inside of your intestines as a drawbridge over a castle moat. When the bridge is raised, when the intestinal lining is fully intact, only what the castle wants gets in: nutrients, water, essential minerals. Everything else, toxins, bacteria, waste, stays in the moat and is expelled from the body. Microplastics act like tiny invaders that jam the drawbridge mechanism. They slip between the cells of the intestinal wall, cells held together by structures called tight junctions, and physically pull these junctions apart. Once those junctions loosen, the bridge stays half open. Then everything in the moat starts flooding into the castle. Undigested food particles and bacterial fragments called lipopolysaccharides. This is what researchers call intestinal permeability, commonly known as leaky gut. But that's only the first layer of damage. The second thing microplastics do is act like a wrecking ball against the bacterial balance in your gut. Your intestines contain around 38 trillion bacteria, more bacteria than the total number of human cells in your entire body. These organisms aren't just passing guests. They manufacture vitamins, regulate immune response, and even produce chemicals that affect your mood. When microplastic particles settle in the intestinal lining, they create what scientists call a plastosphere, a biofilm surface that favors the growth of harmful bacteria while suppressing beneficial species entirely. It's like throwing gravel onto a carefully tended garden. The weeds thrive and the useful crops die. And here's what makes this particularly dangerous. Between 70 and 80% of your entire immune system resides in and around the intestinal wall. So when microplastics weaken that barrier and disrupt bacterial balance, the immune system doesn't stay calm. It becomes overactive, causing chronic low-grade inflammation that spreads throughout the entire body, affecting joints, skin, the brain, and the cardiovascular system. Now, for the most empowering part, your body has built-in natural mechanisms to bind foreign particles, neutralize inflammation, and repair the intestinal lining. The problem is that most people follow a modern diet that does nothing to activate these mechanisms. The foods I'm about to share with you are the ones research says can activate them. Mechanism 1, particle absorption. Certain plant compounds have a molecular structure that physically binds to microplastic particles and the heavy metals they carry, like a magnet picking up iron filings from a table. These compounds, particularly a type of fiber called modified pectin and certain polysaccharides found in seaweed, wrap around plastic particles, prevent them from penetrating deeper into tissue, and carry them out of the body through stool. This has been measured in controlled human studies using stool sample analysis and electron microscopy. Mechanism 2, tight junction repair. After microplastics break the bonds between your intestinal cells, specific nutrients are needed to signal those cells to rebuild. Certain amino acids, especially glutamine, and certain polyphenols found in berries and root vegetables have shown in clinical studies the ability to reduce permeability and reseal the gaps between cells. Think of it like regrouting bathroom tiles. The tiles are still there. They just need the gaps resealed. Mechanism 3, bacterial balance restoration and immune reset. Even if you remove the plastic particles and repair the lining, inflammation will continue if the bacteria remain unbalanced. Certain prebiotic compounds, not probiotics, but prebiotics, selectively feed the beneficial bacterial species that microplastics suppressed. When these species return, they produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, the most important energy source for colon cells and one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory compounds your body can produce. Improvements appear within just a few weeks. A 2023 study analyzing intestinal tissue biopsies from 52 adults found microplastic particles embedded in intestinal mucus in 100% of participants. The most common polymers were polyethylene and polypropylene, and the surrounding tissue showed significantly elevated inflammation markers, particularly IL-6 and TNF-alpha, compared to adjacent clean tissue. In a 10-week randomized controlled trial with 78 participants, the group taking 15 grams daily of modified citrus pectin showed a 43% increase in lead excretion through urine and a significant decrease in microplastic-associated toxins as measured by mass spectrometry in stool samples. Another study examining alginate extracted from brown seaweed found it capable of absorbing up to 80% of polyethylene particles in a simulated gut environment within just 4 hours. A 12-week trial using 5 grams daily of glutamine showed a 28% reduction in intestinal permeability, as measured by the lactulose mannitol test, the gold standard for evaluating tight junction integrity. And most impressively, a 6-month follow-up of 340 adults showed that those consuming a diet rich in prebiotic fiber, at least 30 grams of diverse plant fiber daily, had butyrate levels in stool 2.4 times higher than the control group, and their inflammation markers dropped to levels resembling people 10 years younger. Here is the exact protocol: quantities, timing, and preparation methods supported by research. 1. Chlorella, 3 grams, about 1 teaspoon of powder, with breakfast. Chlorella is a freshwater algae with a triple-layered cell wall that acts as a natural absorber. It binds to heavy metals and microplastic-associated toxins before they are absorbed. Mix the powder into a morning smoothie or water and never heat it. High temperatures reduce its binding capacity. 2. Wakame seaweed, 5 grams dried, about 2 tablespoons after rehydrating. Contains a polysaccharide called fucoidin and is rich in alginates. Add it rehydrated to soups, salads, or grain dishes. If seaweed is new to you, start with 2 grams and increase gradually over 2 weeks to avoid digestive discomfort. 3. Cooked and cooled green banana, half a medium banana, 4 to 5 times per week, steamed or boiled, then cooled. Green bananas are one of the richest natural sources of resistant starch, a prebiotic fiber that beneficial bacteria ferment directly into butyrate. Cooking, then cooling increases resistant starch content by up to 50%. Slice it, steam for 12 minutes, let it cool to room temperature, then eat. 4. Freshly ground flaxseed. 2 tablespoons ground fresh daily, added to any meal. Flaxseed forms a viscous mucilaginous substance when it contacts fluids in the intestines. This coating creates a temporary protective layer that reduces microplastic contact with tissue while tight junctions are being repaired. It also provides lignin compounds that help reduce zonulin levels. Grind fresh immediately before eating. 5. Bone broth or glutamine-rich foods. 1 cup of slow-simmered bone broth daily, or 5 grams of glutamine powder. Glutamine is the primary fuel for intestinal lining cells. For vegetarians, half a cup of red cabbage juice daily provides glutamine alongside antioxidants that support healing. 6. Tart cherries. 1 cup of frozen tart cherries, or 30 milliliter of unsweetened concentrate daily. Contains a specific type of anthocyanin that has been shown to reduce intestinal inflammation markers by up to 40%. Add to your morning smoothie, or mix the concentrate with water as an evening drink. 7. Raw garlic. 2 medium cloves daily, crushed and left for 10 minutes before eating. Garlic contains allicin, a sulfur compound that inhibits the harmful bacteria growing on microplastic surfaces without harming beneficial bacteria like lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. Crushing and waiting 10 minutes is essential. Cooking nearly destroys this reaction. If raw garlic is too strong, mince it finely and swallow with water like small tablets. Clinical tips for best results. Tip 1. Take binding agents before meals. Take the chlorella and seaweed at least 15 minutes before your main meal. This places the binding agents in your intestines before food, and the microplastics it inevitably carries arrives. Tip 2. Combine cooled green banana with flaxseed. The resistant starch feeds the bacteria while the flaxseed mucilage protects the lining simultaneously. Tip 3. Rotate your prebiotic sources weekly. Bacterial diversity depends on fiber diversity. Don't eat the same prebiotic food every single day. Tip 4. Filter your drinking water, but don't stop there. Avoid heating food in plastic containers and use loose leaf tea instead of synthetic tea bags. Tip 5. Consistency beats quantity. Aim to consume at least 5 of these 7 foods daily. The intestinal damage from microplastics is not a life sentence. It is not permanent or inevitable. Your body has natural mechanisms designed to protect you. All they need is the right nutrients to activate them, and you can start providing those today. Microplastics are inside your intestinal lining right now. They damage tight junctions, disrupt bacterial balance, and trigger chronic inflammation throughout the body. This can be reversed through 3 mechanisms: binding and eliminating particles, repairing tight junctions, and restoring bacterial balance through prebiotic fiber. Follow the 7-food protocol consistently, and you will notice measurable changes in your gut health within 4 to 8 weeks. Your health is not determined solely by your environment or your past exposure. It is profoundly shaped by what you choose to put on your plate every day, and by how consistently you take care of your body. You have far more control over this than you have been told.